Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Ann Van Epps. Ann Van Epps, how the hell are you?
Great.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on and let people know where you're doing comedy during the quarantine. I know I follow you. You are Annie in the City 2020 on Instagram, but also on Twitter, which is a little bit less active. You are Ann Van Epps 4, but also on YouTube. You're easily found. Your channel, just going on YouTube and Ann Van Epps. We see all your comedy videos here.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. So you're doing all the fucking shows. You're just producing big time shows in New York City. What can you tell me about it?
So yeah, I'm hosting and co-producing a show at the Tiny Cupboard every Tuesday at the Tiny Cupboard. I just said that. I'm silly. And then I just decided, because I noticed there were a lot of open mics happening in Central Park, but I was like, there aren't any in Prospect Park. And so in August 1st, I started an open mic in Prospect Park.
And you're booking some huge fucking names at the Tiny Cupboard show.
Yeah, I just had Matthew Broussard on the show, and he's actually gonna do a guest spot on my open mic on the 28th, so that'll be cool.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and actually, okay, so I'm reading this book called Darkly, and it's about like the Gothic and sort of the African American viewpoint, I guess. But the girl that wrote it used to hang out in the Sunset Park cemetery a lot. So I was thinking about producing a comedy show that's like a pop-up for Halloween in the cemetery. I don't know if that's
awesome.
not, I mean, I hope
even
that
if it's
people will be
allowed,
interested.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking if we don't have a mic, we could like, I don't know, I don't know, if we get caught, I don't know how it works. I don't know if people go there a lot. She was saying it's really gothic there, and there's like all these cool mausoleums, and I was like, ooh, that sounds perfect. I don't know.
But she would do a reading or something. Like, it wouldn't have to necessarily be comedy, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be because that's what I'm into.
But I mean, it's appropriate for her art, but is it necessarily appropriate for yours?
Well, I was just thinking, because they're doing the 25% now in bars and restaurants, but like I've been trying to find a alternative location because it's getting cold out, and I'm worried about what we're gonna do in the wintertime. But I was just trying to think of alternative venues, and I've been getting a lot of no's from places. But I mean, I know that a cemetery isn't warmer, but I was just like, that would be really cool to do a show in the cemetery. So,
dude, I think there was that House of Cards scene where what's her name? The woman, the female lead in there was caught jogging through a cemetery, and a mourner thought that was inappropriate and said something. So I think if there's any mourners there, though, they could be a little bit taken aback by the comedy near the grave of their loved ones.
that's true. But I was like, maybe she was talking about people from like the 1800s and stuff. So maybe if it's really far back and maybe like on Halloween or something.
Yeah. You guys will be by the old graves because nobody would be mourning them still. That's fucking funny.
Yeah.
And so what about you? And I know you have a pretty busy day job, and also I think you're shooting films and shit like that. So, how has that informed your, that hustle? You've been keeping up all these things at once. Are you even busier now that there's a pandemic?
Yeah, so me and my partner started a company during the pandemic, and we basically like it's so, when you hear about it, you're like, oh God, but we basically like do all the things nobody ever wants to do and just wants to schlep it off to another person. But we basically like pack up your crap in an organized way, and we'll move it to a new space. We like assemble furniture.
Wow.
We actually, there was the mom back in March, we packed up her son's dorm because he like left town for spring break, and then the school was like, "Oh, you guys have 5 days to pack up your shit." And
Wow.
he was like, "I'm on spring break. What do I do?" And so we actually helped a lot of students pack up their stuff. But recently she messaged me because she's like, "Hey, my son and his roommate are moving into a place. Would you guys be interested in assembling or putting together his apartment?" So we like got all of his stuff and basically assembled his whole apartment.
Holy shit.
So it's kind of weird. Like, we've been in all these apartments all over the city and in Brooklyn where we're either there after nobody's been there for like 5 or 6 months. And it's like, it's kind of apocalyptic because it's like these people got up to go to school and then never returned. So, like, it's like I mean, they're not dead, but it feels like they're dead. And we're just like, seeing how I don't know, it's kind of creepy. And now I built up the business, so now we're like doing a start from scratch where we go into these empty apartments, and then we build it up to make it livable for the people to come back. So it's been pretty interesting.
That's fucking. So
um
how'd you build it up? Just through word of mouth?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, we did this for one person, and she knew two people, and so we had two more jobs, and then those people, I really like connecting with people and talking to them, and from that, I found out they knew more people, and so we've just like built the business, talking to more and more people, and now I'm like, because we know of so many places, I've been talking to people who want to come back to the city, and they want their son or daughter to get an apartment, but they need like somebody on the inside, so to speak. And
Yeah.
so I'll be like, "Oh, actually I know the perfect place because we just like moved somebody out of that apartment." Um, so I'm like, I kind of like this. This is weird. I took this realty job when I was in college. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, which I love art. I'm a creative person, but while I was going to school, I needed money. And so I worked for this woman who basically took over her family business in realty. And so I worked right under her for 3 years, and I just kind of did it because I needed a job.
Yeah.
But now after doing it now, I'm like, I kind of like this. I love comedy, but I need something that's lucrative. So I'm like, maybe I should get my real estate license and do that while I'm doing all this stuff for comedy. So
Wow. So you're kind
so
of in the process of taking that test or whatever?
yeah, we got written about in this online, what is it called? It's not called an online newspaper, but what is it? Online publication, or I um that a lot of people on the Upper East Side read. And from that article that I actually wrote, it's so funny. The I'm going to interview you, but she just took everything I said, and that's the whole thing.
If I
But
knew
yeah,
that, I would have said more cool things. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, she did that, and then I had a realty agent, or she's a broker, which is higher up than an agent, I found out. But she reached out to me and was like, "Yeah, I'll mentor you," blah blah blah. So I was like, "Wow, this is awesome." So it's just been really interesting. And then I kind of took my this the skills I'm learning about like networking and um building something up. I took those skills from this business I took the stuff that I've learned, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm good at, I'm taking that over to comedy. I'm like, let's do it for something I really, really care about. So that's kind of why I started the mic. And then the show, I'd been talking to Matt and Amy, the two people that run Tiny Cupboard,
Oh, sure.
about a show, and they were like, we'd really like to have you do a show, and I was like, what? Yeah, and I had never hosted before, but I'd been wanting to host, and I actually talked to an agent who really liked my style, Roger Paul, and he said that he was like, do you host? And I was like, I haven't yet. And he's like, you should host to get used to it and then reach out to me when you're better. This was before the pandemic,
Wow.
but I just started hosting my mic, and I'm like, I kind of like this. And then I got the show, and before I got the Tiny Cupboard show, I was doing hosting an Instagram live show. But before I built up my social media, I used to work in social media, and I've always hated it. But I don't know, Instagram live or Instagram in general is more fun. And I went from 500, I had 500 followers before when I was doing the Instagram live show. And now a month later, I have over 1,700 followers.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I'm like, maybe I should try doing the Instagram live show with now that I have more followers. But I honestly, I don't like Instagram live that much. I rather do live stuff.
Yeah, but it's just so funny. Like over time, you've worked in these. I know you said you worked in social media, but you hated Instagram or whatever, and then you fucking worked in real estate, but you were just doing it for money. But now these are the things kind of sustaining you through the pandemic and making Ann Van Epps the person to know because now you're fucking moving people all over the fucking city and you get your real estate license and you have the show at the fucking premier venue. Now that Tiny Cupboard is premier.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing I learned is that comics that are like higher up, I guess, I don't know what, I guess because of how things are now, there a lot of them are really nice. Like I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can reach out to this person, and then I just make myself do it. And then they turn out to be really nice people, and then they're like, I don't know, like I mean, I just mentioned Matthew Broussard, but he was just so nice. I'm like, what? I'm
Yeah.
confused.
So now you have to
Um,
see whether or not it's just him being nice or whether or not everybody at that level is super fucking kind.
well, they're not all nice, but a lot of them are. I mean, in this situation, I don't
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah, especially if you got a good venue, because I think Jake Velasquez was on and he was talking about, him and Shafi Hossein have a show. I thought one of which was at the Tiny Cupboard, but he was saying if certain of these clubs were open, some of the names might be harder to get, because he'd be
oh,
competing with the Comedy Cellar or whatever to get Matthew Broussard that night.
yeah, that's true.
But that's okay.
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
you're already putting everybody on. Meaning, like, if you were only putting on the big names, it might not be sustainable. But you're kind of filling the bill with, comedians of all levels, and former I see some former guests of mine, and so in doing so, it's like after the pandemic, it's like thanks for putting me on during the pandemic at that great venue. Now, do you want to get on my show, Ann Van Epps?
yeah, that's true. Definitely. Well, the other thing is there's people that I just think are really, really funny, and like I don't remember them in the before times. That's what I've been calling it. Or like when people mention before the pandemic, I'm like, what? I don't even remember that. I'm like,
The
I
before
like
time?
what?
That's great. I love that. It's like, what are you talking about? The before times? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Or like I've gotten some really weird messages since I started this stuff. Like I had somebody reach out to me and they were like, "Hi Anne, we were on a show in January or February together. Put me on your show." And I'm like, "I don't know who you are. Can you like be more specific? Like January or February? What?"
Uh, uh,
I'm like, can you tell me what your comedy is like, or like you send me a clip or something?
so you didn't
I
even
don't know.
you didn't recognize them by name or by sight even?
No, and I actually
Uh,
went to their Instagram page, and I'm like, I
this person
I
could
don't.
be making it up, right?
Yeah, he could. Yeah, he could be. I mean, it's a male.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's the other thing. I mean, I like. I should. I don't know. I like all comics, but I be open. Like I don't really care about like gender or sex, but I more care about if you're funny. And I think I don't know. I like that about myself. I don't know what else to
Yeah, something to take
say.
pride in. It's something to take pride in. And like, how are you getting on? I mean, I guess you have a host spot on all of these shows, I think. But what's your comedy like, and how has it changed over time with the pandemic?
So
What kind
my
of stuff were you talking about before, and is that stuff still evergreen? Was it observational and it all has to go in the trash now that there's a pandemic, or were you just talking about things in your life and you're still able to talk about those same things?
so my comedy is like super awkward. Uh, uh, I don't know. I say gross stuff a lot, but it's like from personal experience. I mean, all of it is personal
Okay.
experience.
Did you say
Or like,
gross, GROSS?
yeah,
But it's all coming out of my body though, so it's all gross.
yeah. Well, I'll give people a warning. I don't know. I'm working on this new joke. I mean, should I say what the joke is,
Oh no,
or
don't
you said?
don't burn your material, but just lay it generally. What are the things that are interesting you enough to kind of, grind away to make sure that bit becomes polished? What are some
I'm
promising subjects or things in the past? You don't need to burn kind of new stuff, but just, what are the, when the crowd sees Van Epps, say this thing, that's when they laugh the most because, your persona is more awkward or whatever.
okay. So two things. One, I did a mic last night where I was practicing this new joke where the preface is, "Do you guys want to hear something gross?" Usually everyone says yes, but when I was toward the end of the joke, because it's more like a story or there's like multiple pieces, it's not just like a joke with one punchline. It's like there's laughing times multiple times within it.
Right.
But that at the end of it, I went, I feel like I pushed the limits. I like pushing the limits. But this girl who was on like just blatantly was on her phone the whole time. I'm like, if you're gonna be on your phone, at least be like, try to be secretive about it. But she was like on her phone the whole time, and then she was like, "Ew," and I was like, "I told you it was gross. I don't know what you were expecting."
She was like, I was looking at my phone during that part.
Yeah,
And is
I
this
mean,
a comedian? Is this like a fellow comedian who might be looking at her phone for material or what?
yeah, but she was scrolling. I mean, she was looking at her phone the whole entire time. I don't know why she was even there. I'm like, why even come if
Yeah.
you're? Because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I feel like if you're gonna go to go to a mic or a show or whatever, like be present. Unless you expect everyone to be on their phone when you're on stage, like there should be a little bit of um, what's the word? Uh,
Reciprocity.
yeah, sure. That's yeah.
Consideration, empathy. But I guess,
Consideration. Yeah.
yeah, if it's your mic, of course, it's cool that you say something. But like, are you always that confrontational? Like, if it were just you hosting, you jumping on somebody else's bill, would you ever kind of go into the audience like that and kind of, be like, what the fuck are you on your phone for? Or did you feel more
Oh,
comfortable doing so
I
because that's something
so
you're running?
yeah, well at my mic, like I'll say it in a funny way, but like I remember there was a guy in the back and he was on his phone the whole time. So before I called him up, I was like, "Hey, it's blah blah blah. He's been on his phone this whole time, so let's hope he's not going to be on his phone while he's on stage." That was my
And you're like, everybody in the audience, please feel free to get on your phone and scroll endlessly.
yeah.
Wow.
I
Well, that's
mean,
funny.
sometimes, yeah, I mean, I'm a culprit too sometimes. Like I'll be deleting pictures on my phone so I can take pictures of people when they're on stage. Like if I do
All right.
my with my mic or like it's hard because you use your phone for so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but what's the other? Oh, and then you asked me something earlier. I said the thing about the girl on her phone, but there was another thought. I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah, just kind of, the stuff you were talking about before and what was really working because it came out of an awkward persona's mouth. Like meaning what's an Ann Van Epps thing that nobody else could talk about because they don't have the same persona. Like just kind of awkward, gross things that are happening in your life.
Um,
Because for example, I'm looking at your YouTube thing and I see Sugar Baby audition tape take 35. That is hilarious. 27 seconds long. That's hilarious. That's Ann Van Epps in a nutshell.
yeah, well, so in April, everybody was quarantined. I wasn't following the rules because we got a bunch of apartments that we packed up and moved for people. And I'm like, thank God this is keeping me sane. But
Yeah.
like the only people, it was fine because no one was around. But the people keeping me sane were my sister and my boyfriend, and those are the only two people I was around all the time. And so
Okay.
my boyfriend now, it's complicated. None of your business. Stop talking Ann about it. We were we were shooting sketches in Prospect Park because I'm like totally fascinated by the sugar baby lifestyle. I can't even believe that that's something that exists. So like we were like, let's just keep making sugar baby videos where what I'm saying is really gross at the end. So it's like I can't remember what it is. They'll just have to watch it. But the fu-
Yes.
the most hilarious thing about doing those is I posted them on Instagram and I actually got men looking for sugar babies contact me, and I'm like, I guess they're not listening at all because I'm like,
Yeah.
if a sugar baby tells you that penises are gross, are you gonna want to be with that person?
These are the questions that Ann Van Epps will totally contemplate while she's on stage, and that's why we follow her. At Instagram, she's Annie in the City 2020, and the less used Ann Van Epps 4. That's on Twitter. And so, Ann Van Epps, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, you're welcome. This has been really fun.